Hi everyone and welcome to We Creative Spring Tales. This week is episode 6. My name's Ailish and I'm part of your learning and participation team here at Capital Theatres in Edinburgh. And this week's story we are celebrating everything spring. So although sometimes the days still feel a little bit cold, spring is definitely here and there are signs all around us. Maybe it's the bird song that you can hear, maybe it's seeing some flowers poke through, some daffodils and tulips, all those spring bright colours that we can enjoy outside. Maybe it's the lighter days and lighter nights, more hours of sunshine. There are lots of signs that spring really is here. So this week's story is called The Song of the Spring. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there lived a king who was very ill indeed. He was the kindest, merriest king there had ever been. He helped the people of the kingdom and always stopped to play games with the children as he drove in his royal carriage through the village. Since he had been feeling unwell, he no longer did these things. He never smiled and he seemed too weary to care what happened in the kingdom. Nobody could work out what was wrong or how to make things better. The king needs different food, said the palace cook, so he worked hard in the kitchen to make new and inventive recipes for every meal. He used only the best ingredients he could find, and everyone found the food to be absolutely delicious, but the king was uninterested and had no appetite. The king needs medicine, said the palace doctor, so he searched the countryside for different ingredients and spent time collecting things for making special potions, but the king refused to drink them. Perhaps music would make the king feel better, suggested the palace guard. It might make him forget whatever is troubling him. And as music was the only remedy that had not been tried, a messenger from the palace hurried through the streets, calling as loudly as he could, "Music for the king! Music for the king! Riches and honour for whoever can play the prettiest tune and make his majesty well again." Immediately, the palace was filled with music, some of it very beautiful and all of it played by very famous people. A sweet singer came and sang a song about all the princesses and queens that had listened to his tune. But at the end, the king was still weak and sorrowful. A harpist from a faraway kingdom came and played music that sounded like the mighty wind on high mountain tops and the rushing flow of countryside streams. But the king only thanked the harpist and sent him away again. Later on, there came a trumpeter who gave great battle calls on his trumpet. But the king covered his ears to shut out the sound and looked more sad than ever because the sound of the trumpet gave him a headache. And so it seemed as if not even music could make the king well, and no one knew what to do. Now across on the other side of the valley lived a boy named Gladheart, who tended sheep on the family farm. He was the youngest of 5 brothers, and they all lived squashed into a little house. Gladheart had been given his name because he always smiled over the littlest things and was very sunny and positive. Now that he was 10 years old, with a great flock of sheep of his own, he had smiles and kind words for all, and he played his violin all day long until its sweet tunes filled the valley. "I must go and play before the king," Gladheart said one day. "They will laugh at your violin," said his brothers. But Gladheart didn't care what his brothers said. He felt positive about it, and the next day set out across the valley for the palace. "The king will have nothing to do with a small shepherd boy dressed in rags and with such an old bashed up violin," the guards at the door said. but Gladheart touched the strings with the bow and began to play such a beautiful tune that the guards opened the door and Gladheart went inside to play before the king. At first Gladheart was frightened by the sight of the king looking so sorrowful on the throne, with a face as frowning and as sad as a storm. But he took courage. He stayed positive and stood as straight as he could in front of the throne. And he began to play a tune that he had learned years before while in the fields with his sheep. It was a lovely tune, like birdsong mixed with a gentle wind and the voice of a rippling brook, all joined up together with the sounds of little bees and crickets who hum and buzz so happily. And as the king listened, his bent shoulders straightened and his face became bright with smiles. He reached out his hands to Gladheart. "I heard that tune once before when I was a boy," he said. "It makes me well to hear it now. What is it about?" "It is about the spring, Your Majesty," said Gladheart. "It is the song that I learned from the fields when winter was over. It is about finding happiness in the little things within nature and being happy to be part of such greatness. If Your Majesty will come with me to my sheep farm, you may hear it there every day." Now no one in the palace or the entire kingdom could understand why the king was suddenly so well, or why he went often to sit with Gladheart and his sheep, but they were all very happy about it. Gladheart was given the riches and the honour that they had promised whoever could heal their king, and they all lived very happily ever after. The end. So I think we can learn a little something from that story and really enjoy taking notice of all of the signs of spring that are springing up all around us and enjoy what nature can give us. Now over to Kat, who's got a special spring craft for you today. Enjoy, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you, Ailish, for that brilliant story. That was so much fun and beautifully read. Thank you. Okay, everyone, our craft for this week, as I said, is making a cherry blossom tree. Now, this is actually made finger painting and with a little bit of brushwork, but it should be easy enough for everyone in your family to try at home. All you're going to need is some red paint, some white paint, and some brown paint, and one paintbrush, as well as a piece of paper. I know this is finger painted, but trust me, pro tip, a brush works better for the tree trunk. Now, I like to use acrylic paint, but anything you've got in the house works perfectly. And again, you can paint it onto anything you like, within reason. So a piece of card, canvas, but I think A4 plain paper works perfectly. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is paint my tree trunk. And you can do this as finger painting, but I find it much easier just to get the brush to get this bit done. And what I'm going to do is not draw the big cloud outline that we would normally get for a tree. I'm just going to start by doing some big strokes on my page, and these are going to become the branches. Once we've got to this point, it kind of looks like a really wiggly wobbly brown spiky hand, doesn't it? But that's perfect, trust me, as a base for our tree. The next thing I'm going to do is take my red paint, and I'm actually going to do 3 little blobs onto, in my case, a paint palette, but you can use a piece of paper or card. And what I've done here, can you see, is that I've started with dark and I've just added more white into these two so that we can get 3 different shades, and a little bit of white here too. This is where we get messy, everyone. I would start with the dark pink on your finger, whichever finger or thumb you prefer, and you're going to just start splodging it on around and about these branches. Now, if you have more time than me, you are going to wait until your brown paint is completely dry. Next, I'm going to move on to my mid pink, and I'm going to pop that on top of all of the branches. in and around my dark pink, not being afraid to mix those up. Because you know, when you look at a cherry blossom tree, you get all the shades of pink together, don't you? So that's what we're going to be doing here. And then finally, the lightest pink, I'm going to pop in and around, right on top, spludge it all so that it looks just beautiful. Here we have it, everyone, our finger painted cherry blossom trees, ready to give as gifts or to hang on your wall. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back with episode 7, the penultimate episode, next week. See you there.